Welcome to another deep dive, and this time we're going to be looking at super communicators.
Yeah, those folks that just seem to, have these amazing conversations and everyone's drawn to them.
Exactly, and we're going to be cracking the code of how they do it.
We've got this awesome book
Oh, yeah.
packed with all kinds of insights from psychology and sociology. And
Real-world examples.
yeah, so we'll break it all down into
Yeah.
simple terms, give you some actionable techniques.
I love it. Think of it as your guide to better and more meaningful conversations.
That's right. We're going to help you figure out why some conversations flow effortlessly while others, well, they just don't.
And more importantly, you'll learn how to make all of your conversations those good ones.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the book dives into three main types of conversations.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into all three, but just to lay them out there.
Yeah.
The first one is, what's this really about?
Okay.
The second one is, how do we feel?
Uh-huh.
And the third one is, who are we?
Right. So these are kind of like
Big questions, right?
the big overarching kind of categories that a lot of our conversations fall into.
Yeah, and so we're going to kind of get into the science behind each of those.
Yeah.
But before we even jump into that,
Okay.
I think we got to talk about this idea of neural entrainment.
Neural entrainment. Now that sounds complicated.
It does sound a little sciencey, but I promise it's not that bad.
Okay.
So have you ever had one of those conversations with someone where like you just feel totally in sync?
Oh, yeah, totally. You're on the same wavelength.
Right.
You're like reading each other's minds.
You finish each other's sentences.
That's like magic.
It's such a good feeling.
It is. And you know what? It turns out that's not just some kind of woo-woo thing. It's an actual phenomenon.
Really?
Yeah, it's happening in the brain.
What? So like our brains are actually syncing up
That's right.
when we're having a good conversation.
Absolutely. So studies have shown that when two people are really engaged in a conversation,
Okay.
their brain waves actually start to mirror each other.
That's so cool.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just brain waves.
No.
Even our heart rates can start to synchronize.
I love that there's like a real physical basis
Yeah.
for that feeling.
Absolutely. When you click with someone, you're literally on the same frequency.
Wow. Okay, so now the big question.
Yeah.
How do we get our brains and our heart rates to sync up with other people?
Well, some people are just naturally good at this.
Right.
The book calls them super communicators.
Those are the folks who just seem to draw people in effortlessly.
Yeah, they build trust.
Everyone feels heard.
They make everyone feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think we all know at least one person like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the friend everyone goes to for advice.
Yes.
Or that colleague who always leads the best brainstorming sessions.
The person that when you're talking to them, you feel like you're the only person in the room.
Exactly. So the book breaks down what makes these super communicators so effective.
Okay, so we're going to learn from the best.
That's the goal.
Awesome. All right, let's dive into the first type of conversation. What's this really about?
Yeah,
Seems pretty straightforward,
it does.
but there's got to be more to it.
Well, the book argues that there's often a lot more going on beneath the surface.
Okay.
Think about it like a simple question.
Uh-huh.
Like, can we talk about that meeting?
Yeah.
Could actually be masking a deeper concern.
Okay, so it's not so much about the meeting itself.
Right.
It's about whatever is behind that.
Exactly. To really have a productive conversation, you have to figure out what everyone's real goals and needs are.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the book gives this fascinating story about a CIA recruiter
Oh, intrigue.
who's trying to convince a key asset to cooperate.
Okay.
And he keeps hitting a wall.
Yeah,
He's using all the standard logic and arguments,
right.
but nothing's working.
This asset's tough.
This asset is not budging.
Okay.
And then he has this breakthrough.
Right, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happened?
He shifts his approach, he stops focusing on logic, and he decides to get vulnerable.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he opens up about his own fears and uncertainties.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what finally creates a connection.
So it was that human connection
Yes, it was a human connection.
that broke down the wall.
Exactly. Sometimes emotional logic trumps practical logic.
I love, so you're saying there are like different types of logic?
Absolutely. There's the practical logic, the one we usually think of,
Yeah.
weighing costs and benefits,
Uh-huh.
making rational decisions.
Right.
But there's also this empathetic logic,
Okay.
a logic of similarities and shared emotions.
So the super communicators,
Yes.
they're the ones that are good at reading the situation.
Right.
And knowing which logic to apply.
Exactly. They know when to appeal to the head and when to appeal to the heart.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the book illustrates this with a case study of a jury
Oh, wow.
deliberating a complex case.
Okay.
And there's this one juror who's kind of the super communicator of the group. And he uses these really carefully crafted questions
Okay.
to understand each juror's underlying motivations and beliefs.
And he's figuring out their logic.
Yes, and by tapping into that empathetic logic,
Right.
he's able to sway the entire jury.
That's powerful stuff.
It is.
So it's really understanding someone's deeper motivations.
Yes.
That can be the key to persuasion.
It's not always about having the best arguments.
Right.
It's about understanding the other person's perspective.
Okay, so what's this really about?
That's what this is really about. Let's move on to how do we feel?
Wow.
Conversations.
All right, now this one seems pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
But I have a feeling there's more to it
there is.
than meets the eye.
There's a fascinating scientific angle here.
Ooh, I like science.
Research shows that we're wired for what they call emotional contagion. Basically, emotions are contagious.
What? Like we can catch feelings from other people.
Exactly.
A cold.
Like a cold, the way someone feels can actually influence your own emotions.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, we've all been around someone
I
who's
think
like
so.
super negative and then like you just start feeling negative.
Absolutely.
Or if someone's like really excited, you get excited.
We feed off each other's energy.
Yeah, okay, so emotions are contagious.
They are.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know, it's one of the most powerful triggers for this emotional contagion.
Let me guess, is it vulnerability?
Vulnerability, exactly.
Because when someone opens up to us, it makes us feel closer to them.
Yes, think about it. When someone shares something personal,
Yeah.
you can't help but lean in and listen.
You feel like they trust you.
Exactly. It creates a bond.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel more connected to them.
And it makes you want to share back.
Exactly.
Okay, so the book explores this concept through the lens of those famous 36 questions that lead to love.
Oh, yes, the 36 questions.
Have you heard of these?
I have. They're supposed to create like instant intimacy.
Right, like just by asking these 36 questions, you're going to fall in love.
That's the claim.
So is there any truth to that?
Well, the book dives into the research.
Okay.
And it turns out those questions were carefully crafted
Okay.
to encourage what they call sustained, escalating, reciprocal, personalistic self-disclosure.
All right, hold on. Break that down for me. What does all that mean?
It means basically the questions are designed to get people to gradually open up more and more about themselves
Okay.
in a way that feels safe and mutually beneficial.
So both people are kind of like slowly revealing more and more.
Exactly. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Okay, so it's that vulnerability, that gradual opening up.
Yes.
That's what creates the connection.
Yeah, not necessarily love,
Not necessarily love,
but connection.
connection, intimacy.
Got it.
And the study found that even strangers who went through this process of asking and answering these questions felt significantly closer afterwards.
So it's not magic, it's science?
It's science.
I love it.
It's about activating these neurological and psychological mechanisms.
That create a sense of intimacy.
Now, I don't know if I'm going to be busting out these 36 questions
Probably not on a first date.
on a first date or in a business meeting.
No,
But the principle behind it, I think, can apply to any conversation.
absolutely.
It's finding ways to ask those deeper questions
Yes.
to get people to open up.
And the book gives some great examples of how to rephrase everyday questions
Yeah.
to make them more engaging.
Like what?
So, for example, instead of asking someone, what do you do?
Yeah. The classic small talk question.
You could ask, what are you most passionate about in your work?
I love that. It shifts the focus.
It changes the
I know,
whole...
from just like a job title
Right.
to like what they actually care about.
Exactly. Right.
Okay, give me another one.
Okay, instead of asking, where did you grow up?
Yeah.
You could try, what's one of your fondest childhood memories?
Ooh, I like that.
It makes it more personal,
Yeah. And specific.
and it invites them to share a story.
It's amazing how just like a little tweak in the wording, yes, can transform a conversation. Absolutely. From being kind of boring,
Right.
to actually being meaningful.
It's all about the phrasing.
Yeah. The key is to be genuinely curious about the other person
Right.
and to create a space where they feel comfortable opening up.
It's about making them feel safe and heard.
Okay, so we've talked about asking deeper questions.
Yes.
But we got to be willing to be vulnerable ourselves, too.
Absolutely. It goes both ways.
Right. If you want someone to open up to you,
Uh-huh.
you got to be willing to open up to them.
It's about reciprocity.
Yeah. It's like that trust building.
It's about building trust and rapport.
Right. But that can be really hard
It can be scary
to be vulnerable,
to put yourself out there.
especially if you're not used to it.
Yeah, but the rewards are worth it.
Yeah, those deep connections.
Those deep
That's
connections.
what it's all about.
Those are what make life meaningful.
Okay. So this idea of being a super communicator,
Yeah.
it's not just about learning techniques. It's about being willing to show up authentically
Yes.
and connect with people on a deeper level.
It's about being present,
Yeah.
being genuine.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I want to go back to that Big Bang Theory example.
Oh, yeah, the high scene.
It's just so funny to me how much they could communicate with that one word.
I know, it's brilliant.
But it really highlights the importance of matching.
Matching.
Right, which we talked about earlier.
Right, remember, super communicators are masters of this.
So can you remind us again what matching is all about?
Matching is about aligning your mood and energy
Okay.
with the person you're talking to.
So if someone's really excited,
Yes.
you kind of match their excitement.
You meet them where they are.
Okay.
But if someone's feeling down,
Yeah.
you adjust your demeanor accordingly.
Right. You don't want to be like, hey, what's up?
No, you want to be more subdued and empathetic.
Okay, so it's not about being fake
Right.
or trying to like mimic the other person.
No, it's about showing genuine empathy
Okay.
and creating a sense of connection.
Got it. So it's like you're speaking a language
Yeah.
that goes beyond words.
It's a nonverbal language.
And this applies to our body language too.
Yes.
Our tone of voice, our facial expressions.
It's all part of the package.
So if someone's telling you about like a really tough experience,
Yeah.
you don't want to be sitting there with your arms crossed and a blank expression.
No, you want to show them you're engaged.
Yeah.
Lean in, make
I
eye
hate it.
contact,
Nod your head.
show them you care.
It's amazing how much those nonverbal cues can impact a conversation.
It's huge.
And now I'm thinking about all my nonverbal habits
Me too.
and like what I'm communicating without even realizing it.
It's a good thing to be aware of.
It is.
You know, we all have these nonverbal tendencies.
Yeah.
The key is to become more aware of them
Okay.
and use them intentionally
I love it.
to strengthen our connection.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, but we've got to talk about conflict
Yes, the elephant in the room.
because conflict is a part of life.
It's inevitable.
It's how we handle it that matters.
That's the key.
So let's dive into that next.
Let's do it. So, we were just talking about matching, and I think one thing that really struck me in the book was this concept of listening experiments.
Listening experiments.
Yeah, now it sounds kind of strange.
What is that?
Well, it's this idea that we're not just passively taking in information when we're listening to someone, but we're actually kind of testing the waters,
Oh, okay.
to see how we can best connect with them.
Interesting.
Like, have you ever noticed how people will often laugh
Mhm.
after they say something,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't that funny?
Yeah, sometimes I guess I haven't really thought about why they do that.
The book suggests that it's a subtle way of gauging your reaction. Like they're checking to see if you're enjoying the conversation, if you're on the same page.
Oh, so it's like they're running a little experiment.
Exactly. And it's not just laughter. It's
Yeah.
those little cues that we give while we're listening, like those uh-huhs and
Yeah.
The book calls these back channeling.
Back channeling.
Yeah, and they're basically signals of engagement,
Oh, okay.
like a secret language
Yeah.
that we use to show that we're present and we're interested.
Right, because, sometimes if someone's not giving you any of those cues, you're like, are they even listening to me?
Exactly.
Okay, so back channeling, important.
Very important. And even like changing the subject abruptly can sometimes be a sign that someone is trying to steer the conversation in a different direction. Not necessarily out of rudeness,
Okay.
but because they're looking for a better connection.
So even those like kind of random conversational detours
Yeah.
can actually be really revealing.
Okay, so it's all about these subtle cues.
It's all about those subtle cues, and I think it's fascinating how much we're constantly reading each other, even if we don't realize it.
Right. So, we've been talking about these listening experiments, but what about all that traditional advice we've heard about how to be a good listener?
Oh, yeah, like nodding constantly.
Yes.
Making intense eye contact.
Mirroring the other person's every move.
Like you're trying so hard.
Yeah, you're like performing empathy.
Yeah.
But the book actually argues that those techniques can backfire.
Really?
Yeah, it can come across as forced
Okay.
and insincere,
Right.
like you're not really feeling it.
Right. It's like you're trying too hard.
Exactly. And I've definitely been in situations where someone's over-the-top listening has felt kind of creepy.
Yes.
So instead of trying to perform, the key is to create the conditions for genuine connection.
Okay.
And that's where getting deep comes in.
Right. Asking those deeper questions.
Yes.
Going beyond the surface level stuff.
The book talks about a fascinating study
Okay.
that explored this idea
Uh-huh.
called the 36 questions that lead to love.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those.
Have you?
Yeah. Is it true that asking a set of questions can, like, make people fall in love?
Well, the book digs into the research,
Okay.
and it turns out that those questions were really carefully crafted
Okay.
to encourage something that they call sustained, escalating, reciprocal, personalistic self-disclosure.
Wow. That is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
Break that down for me.
basically means that the questions are designed to get people to slowly open up more and more about themselves
Okay.
in a way that feels safe and mutually beneficial.
So both people are kind of revealing more and more.
Exactly, like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Right. Okay.
And the study found that even strangers
Okay.
who went through this process of asking and answering these questions felt significantly closer afterwards.
Wow.
So it's not magic,
It's science.
it's science.
I love that.
It's about activating these neurological and psychological mechanisms
Okay.
that create a sense of intimacy.
Now, I don't know if I'm going to be busting out these 36 questions.
Yeah, probably not the best idea for a first date.
Yeah, or a job interview. But I think the principle behind it
Yeah, absolutely.
can apply to any conversation.
The key is to find ways to ask those deeper questions that invite people to share more of themselves.
Yeah. And the book has some great examples of how to rephrase those everyday questions to make them more engaging.
Oh yeah, like instead of what do you do,
Ah, the classic.
you could ask, what are you most passionate about in your work?
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Because it shifts the focus from just like their job title to what they actually care about.
Exactly.
Give me another one.
Okay, instead of where did you grow up, you could try, what's one of your fondest childhood memories?
Oh, I like that.
Makes it more personal.
Yeah.
And it invites them to share a story.
It's amazing how, like, just changing the wording a little bit
Yeah.
can just completely transform the conversation.
The phrasing is everything.
The phrasing is everything.
Yeah.
So the key is to be genuinely curious about the other person.
Yes.
And to create a space where they feel comfortable opening up.
make them feel safe. Make them feel heard.
Okay, so we've talked about asking those deeper questions.
Yes.
But we also have to be willing to be vulnerable ourselves.
Absolutely. It goes both ways.
Right. If we want someone to open up to us, we got to be willing to open up to them.
It's about reciprocity. Building that trust.
Right. But that can be hard.
It can be scary
To be vulnerable.
to put yourself out there.
Especially if you're not used to it.
Yeah. But the rewards are worth it.
Yeah, because those deep connections
Those deep connections.
are what make life meaningful.
That's what it's all about.
So this idea of being a super communicator,
Yeah.
it's not just about learning techniques.
Not just about the techniques.
It's about being willing to show up authentically
Yes.
and connect with people on a deeper level.
Be present. Be genuine.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about the Big Bang Theory earlier.
Yeah, the his scene.
And how they use nonverbal communication
Yes.
to create these hilarious moments.
And it really highlights the importance of matching.
Matching, right? Which we talked about earlier.
Super communicators are masters of this.
Can you remind us again what matching is all about?
Matching is about aligning your mood and energy with the person you're talking to.
Okay.
So if someone's really excited and energetic,
Yeah.
you match that energy.
Okay.
You meet them where they are.
But if someone's feeling down,
Yeah, then you adjust your demeanor accordingly.
you're not like, hey, what's up?
No, you want to be more subdued and empathetic.
Right. It's not about being fake
It's not about being fake.
or trying to mimic the other person.
No, it's about showing genuine empathy and creating a sense of connection.
Got it. So it's like speaking a language that goes beyond words.
It's a nonverbal language.
And this applies to our body language too.
Our tone of voice,
Yeah.
our facial expressions, it's all part of the package.
So if someone's telling you about like a really tough experience,
Yeah.
you don't want to be sitting there with your arms crossed in a blank expression.
No, you want to show them that you're engaged.
Right.
Lean in, make eye contact, show them you care.
It's amazing how much those nonverbal cues can impact a conversation.
It's huge.
I'm starting to think about like all my nonverbal habits.
Yeah, me too.
And like, what am I communicating without even realizing it?
It's a good thing to be aware of.
It is.
We all have these little tendencies and habits,
Yeah.
The key is to become more aware of them and then use them intentionally to strengthen our connections.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
but we haven't talked about conflict
Ah, yes, conflict, the elephant in the room.
because it's a part of life,
It's inevitable.
but it's how we handle it that matters.
That's the key.
So let's dive into that.
All right, so conflict,
Conflict, yeah, we've all been there.
it's inevitable, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's part of life. It's how we handle it that really matters.
And this deep dive has been so insightful so far. I feel like I've learned so much about communication.
Me too. It's really fascinating stuff.
And I'm already thinking about, all the ways that I can use these techniques to have more meaningful conversations.
Absolutely.
But conflict, man, that's a tough one,
It can be really tricky.
especially when emotions are running high.
Yeah, but the book offers some really valuable insights on how to navigate those tough conversations.
Okay, good.
And it starts by recognizing that there are actually two levels of conflict.
2 levels, okay.
The surface issue
Uh-huh.
and then the underlying emotional conflict.
Oh, so it's like an iceberg.
Exactly like an iceberg.
You see the tip.
You see the tip, but there's a whole lot going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, and if you don't address what's underneath,
Right.
you're never really going to resolve the issue.
Exactly. Any resolution you come to is going to be superficial and probably won't last.
Oh, okay, so we got to go deep on the
It's
conflict.
got to go deep.
What's an example of that?
Well, the book gives this powerful example of a conversation
Okay.
between gun control advocates and gun rights activists.
Oh, wow. Okay, so like a really charged topic.
A very polarized issue.
Talk about conflict.
But they managed to have a civil and productive conversation
How?
by focusing on their shared experiences and vulnerabilities.
Wow, so instead of getting caught up in like their different viewpoints,
Right.
they found common ground through empathy.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's interesting.
And it's a testament to the power of really trying to understand the other person,
Yeah, even when you disagree with them.
even when you disagree vehemently.
Okay, so is there anything else in the book about conflict?
They also talk about this really fascinating study about how couples handle conflict.
Oh, couples.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And it turns out that both happy couples and unhappy couples often argue about the same things.
Really?
Yeah, like money,
Yeah.
chores,
Or
control.
control.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the topic itself
Okay.
that determines whether a relationship thrives or struggles.
So it's how you deal with it.
It's all about how you approach the disagreement.
Okay.
So the difference lies in how these couples try to exert control. Unhappy couples, they tend to focus on controlling each other,
What do you mean?
like what they can say,
Uh,
how they can feel what they should do.
so like trying to control the other person's behavior?
Exactly. And that just leads to resentment and power struggles.
That sounds exhausting.
It's a recipe for disaster.
So what do happy couples do differently?
Happy couples focus on controlling their own reactions.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
It's a subtle but crucial difference.
It's like taking responsibility for your own emotions
Yeah.
instead of trying to manage someone else's.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, the only person you can truly control is yourself.
That's so true. And, there's that quote,
Yeah.
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change,
Yes.
the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a powerful one.
It is. It
Yeah.
applies to so many areas of life.
Especially conflict,
Right. So we've got to focus on what we can control,
our own reactions, our own behavior.
not trying to control other people.
That's
Okay. So, what are some practical tips for handling those tough conversations?
Well, the book talks about setting clear boundaries,
Okay.
acknowledging each other's emotions,
Uh-huh.
and active listening.
Active listening is so important,
Really listening to understand.
not just to respond.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is like a toolkit for stronger relationships.
It is. It's about building those healthy communication patterns.
Yeah, because relationships are the foundation of everything.
They are. And speaking of relationships,
Yes.
the book ends with a really powerful reminder of their importance.
Okay.
It talks about the Harvard study of adult development.
Oh, yeah, the one that followed those guys for 80 years?
That's the one.
Yeah, I've heard about that. What did they find out?
Well, the biggest takeaway was that the quality of our relationships is the single most important factor in our well-being.
Wow. Our relationships are more important than money and fame and success.
That's what the study found.
Because having those close connections
Yeah.
is what really matters.
It's what makes life worth living.
So we got to nurture those connections.
We do.
We got to put in the
We
effort.
got to prioritize our relationship.
Make time for those meaningful conversations.
Exactly, because those connections don't just magically appear.
Right. You got to put in the work.
You got to put in the work.
Wow. This has been incredible.
It's been a really fascinating deep dive.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on communication.
Me too.
It's not just about, exchanging information.
It's about so much more than that.
It's about building bridges, fostering understanding,
Creating connections.
and ultimately living a more fulfilling life.
And remember, you don't have to be born a super communicator.
Right.
These are skills that you can learn and develop.
And this book gives us all the tools.
It does. It's a great starting point.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I want to be a better communicator,
Yeah.
pick up this book and start practicing these techniques.
And I think the most important takeaway for me is just to be more intentional about our communication. To really think about the conversations we're having
Yeah.
and how we can make them more meaningful.
Because every interaction is an opportunity
It is.
to connect with someone on a deeper level.
Absolutely. So go out there and be a super communicator.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights into the world of communication.